So coming into this chapter, we see Sukuna's Dharma Chakra wheel spinning because apparently something had happened off panel in between the previous chapter and this one. And Yuji says there's the second spin, and Kusakabe says 2 more spins and it'll adapt to Gojo's infinity. That's because in the previous chapter, Gojo straight up told Sukuna that Maharaga's Dharma Chakra wheel only needs to spin 4 times to completely adapt to Gojo's infinity or limitless. And considering that it had already spun 2 or 3 chapters ago, it now only requires 3 more spins to completely adapt to Gojo, making Maharaga like invincible against him essentially. And like I said, something just happened off panel at the beginning of this chapter, which caused the wheel to spin again. So now there's only 2 spins left. And we're going to see the third one pretty soon because Gojo starts throwing like these blue balls or blue spheres, I guess you could say, at Sukuna. Blue being the lapse of his curse technique, as they call it in this series, like Gojo amplifying limitless with regular negative cursed energy, which creates like that vacuum ability called blue. Well, he's somehow able to condense this into a projectile sphere and like throws it at Sukuna and eventually catches him off guard. And one of these things like slices up the side of his stomach, but that's actually a good thing because this causes the wheel to spin yet again for the 3rd time, meaning that Maharaga has now adapted to blue, or at least I assume that's what this means. And Yuji asks, is it time or experience that's needed for the adaptation? And that's a great question because we don't really know. Because we see 2 possibilities posited here. Either Maharaga gets hit or Sukuna, being the conduit for him using his wheel, gets attacked and then some time passes and then it figures out how to adapt to it, or it then understands how the ability or the attack or whatever works. Or alternatively, Maharaga takes multiple attacks and it eventually figures out how to adapt. And before this, I thought it kind of just was like a time thing, maybe even like a fast time thing, because it seems like he adapts relatively fast, right? I didn't think it involved him taking multiple attacks because it didn't seem that way before, but from what Kashimo says to this statement, by it could be either and that's all there is to it, I think that's Gege also probably telling the audience that like, hey, it could be either, maybe you'll never know, or maybe I just needed to be a secret for the time being. But I just always assumed it was Maharaga takes attack, adapts to it, if he survives, of course, because that's like the loophole of defeating Maharaga. You have to beat him in 1 attack, because if you don't, then he'll just adapt to it. So this whole business about him having to spin the wheel 4 times to adapt to Gojo, I thought that he would be adapting to each of his attacks and like abilities individually. Like neutral limitless, you know, just Gojo's spatial manipulation thing, and then blue, red, and purple. But I guess that's not the case. Because Kusakabe says, you know, Gojo hasn't been using anything aside from blue or lapse. And that's because he didn't want Maharaga to adapt to anything else. But I guess that's still just not the case. And he just adapts regardless of what you do, as long as it just happens enough. Which goes back to Kashimo saying that either option is possible and that's all there is to it. So it's just like, yeah, I guess. But speaking of Gojo only using blue, it's because he's been trying to lull Sukuna into this false sense of security, make him think that he won't use anything else, you know, so Maharaga won't adapt. And he eventually gets Sukuna into the perfect situation, countering him, coming behind this pillar, and fires off a curse technique reversal red point blank in his face. Now red, of course, just like blue, is the amplified version of limitless, except with blue, Gojo was using regular negative cursed energy, but with red, he's using positive cursed energy, like the same type used for reverse curse technique, the healing ability. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, The Ridge. Guys, I absolutely love The Ridge. They are one of my favorite companies to work with, and that's because I think they genuinely make great products. And the ones that I use the most are the wallet and the key case. Ridge also has their limited edition Hennessey kit, and that's because Ridge is partnered up again with Hennessey for their summer sweepstakes. Without spending $1, you can enter on their website for a chance to win a brand new upgraded Hennessey Ford Bronco, or $75,000 in cash if you prefer that. But you also get 1 bonus entry for every $1 you spend on the site, and custom Hennessey products come with up to 1,000 entries. And if you use my link, ridge.com/Big Z, which is also in the description, you'll get 10 bonus bonus entries at checkout along with 10% off of your purchase. So if you've ever been considering getting a Ridge, now is the best time. And then it creates like this blast, like this propelling force, you know, the opposite of the vacuum that Blue creates. And he shoots Sukuna with this. And Sukuna is able to activate his domain amplification at the last second, you know, coating himself in his own domain to basically neutralize an opponent's curse technique, but at the exchange of shutting down the Dharma Chakra wheel, because we see it like turn dark. And that's because when you use domain amplification, you lose the ability to use your curse technique while you're doing it. We also see Sukuna take some big damage from this. I mean, not too bad, he can just heal from it, but domain amplification, while it does neutralize like base curse techniques, even limitless, as he says, like the neutral version of it, you know, the space manipulation stuff, it can't fully neutralize blue or red. Like, he's still going to take some damage from it, especially if he's just standing there. But this is, I guess, what Sukuna ultimately wants. But in theory, he should be able to adapt to it if he gets hit by it again, not using domain amplification, I guess. But Gojo tells him that the red hasn't exploded. So I guess he let it like pass through Sukuna without it exploding, and then had it continue to travel around the building, make like a 360, and then come all the way back to the start and hit Sukuna in the back. And he just levels Sukuna with this, but that's not all, because he's coming up with a combo and Gojo hits Sukuna with a black flash. Yeah, that's right. A red explosion in the back and then a black flash right in the front. And he straight up knocks Sukuna out with this black flash. Like, that's crazy. So we haven't seen the black flash in a while, actually. Like, it was more prevalent in the first part of the series, but the black flash is the distortion in space that occurs when cursed energy is applied with like 1/1,000,000th of a second or whatever of a physical hit. So like right before you make physical contact with somebody and you apply cursed energy, if you do that in like the right 1/1,000,000th of a second, you'll create this black flash spatial distortion phenomenon. And it says that it like increases the power like 2.5, but I don't think that's accurate. I think it increases power like times 10 because every time we see somebody get hit with a black flash, they are getting wrecked by that thing. And Sukuna, you know, we just talked about, no different here, getting freaking knocked out by this. But after that happens, we see like the 10 Shadows darkness stuff open up in the ground, and Gojo starts to fall into it, and the Dharma Chakra wheel falls as well, and Maharaga starts coming out. And right before that happened, I think we saw the Dharma Chakra spin. They don't mention it, but after Sukuna gets hit with the black flash, I think we see the Dharma Chakra click. And that could mean that either Maharaga has adapted to red because, you know, Sukuna got hit in the back with it, or he adapted to black flash. I'm not really sure if you can adapt to that. I mean, I guess you can, right? But I assume it could be the red that he got hit with, or just neutral limitless if he wasn't already adapted to that, which I assume he had to be. But either way, I guess this is the official fourth spin regardless, and Maharaga on paper at this moment is fully adapted to Gojo. And at the end of the chapter, he like slashes him across the chest. Now, I'm not really worried about this. Pretty sure Gojo's just going to instantly heal from that. I assume that he can. The positive cursed energy blade that Maharaga has shouldn't interfere with that. But as for what Sukuna could do against Maharaga here, I'm not really sure. Now, I guess he can keep hitting him with Black Flash if he didn't adapt to that, and he did adapt to Red. Because it said that you can't like purposely do the Black Flash. It kind of just happens. Like, you just get lucky, essentially. Or you can just get really nice and go into the flow state, I guess, and then hit it consecutively. Like, Nanami has the record for hitting it 4 times. We actually saw that in the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie. But considering that Gojo is a freak, you'd think that he'd be able to surpass that record if he really tried, right? So maybe he hits Maharaga with like 5 or 6 or 7 Black Flashes. I mean, if that doesn't happen, I do think that's going to happen with Yuji later on. Like, Yuji will do like, I don't know, 10 Black Flashes or something in a row. But as for Gojo going against Maharaga here, I think he might start getting beaten down in the next chapter. And we might see some of the other sorcerers have to come in and help him. Now, as for Sukuna, he might be straight up KO'd by this. Like, I think he might be out of commission, and like Maharaga is going to have to fight the battle here for him. I think that would be a good way to level out the stakes here, because if it was Sukuna and Maharaga teaming up on Gojo, then obviously it's pretty much game at that point. But if it's just Gojo versus Mahoraga, then that should make things more interesting. Even if he is fully adapted, I still don't think Gojo is completely out of this fight. He still can win some way. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. Let me know how you think Gojo can still defeat Mahoraga. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.